So the Dynamite Comics version of Ben 10 was released at the time of this recording, and it delivered. It translated the tone of the Absolute Universe from DC seamlessly into our favorite Watcher and superhero. The success of that comic gave me inspiration to create my own version of Ben Tennyson. And I must say, this has been my most taxing video so far, because not only did I create my own version of Ben 10 and his aliens, I also made a comic book with it. If that excited you just a little bit, hit the like button, subscribe, and grab a popcorn. And watch till the end. Trust me. Alright, let's cook. Now, there are a lot of fan interpretations of Ben's character, residing in multiple AUs. But most of them I've read are usually retellings of his origin story, a brand new Omnitrix with alternate designs of his aliens, or entirely new aliens. So I wanted to try something different, something new. Now, the universe of this Ben Tennyson closely resembles the classic version. He had the same origin story, and everything remains relatively the same until his final battle with Vilgax in The Secret of the Omnitrix. But this is where the narrative shifts. In my universe, Ben didn't take off the Omnitrix for 5 years, which kickstarted the events of Alien Force. Instead, he kept it and continued being a superhero. Going on adventures with Grandpa Max, he became a full-time superhero, eventually joined the Plumbers, and started dealing with alien threats, or bigger alien threats. Now, a quick sidetrack for those unfamiliar with Benton's lore. The Plumbers are an intergalactic law enforcement organization that intervenes when cosmic threats are involved. And you know, Grandpa Max is a notable member in the Prime universe. Now, back to the story. In my universe, Ben doesn't mature like Prime Ben. He doesn't take off the Omnitrix to live a normal teen life. Instead, he loved the watch, since it allowed him to continue being a superhero. He loved the superpowers, the fame, the attention. He began to forget the responsibility that came with wielding that power. He becomes reckless, letting threats slip away and putting civilians in harm's way. He starts chasing publicity and exposes many Plumbers' operations to the general public. The Plumbers begin to see him as more of a liability than an asset. They told Max to talk to him and set him straight. He was important, but he wasn't irreplaceable. Grandpa Max tries talking to him and tries reminding him what this is all about, why they do what they do. But Ben, at that point, was drowning in his own ego. He argues with his grandpa, telling him that he and the Plumbers are holding him back and that he would accomplish more alone. After their fallout, Ben leaves the Plumbers and starts working solo. He spends most of his teenage years doing hero work and becomes immensely popular, basically a celebrity. After a while, a Plumber satellite detects a very large unidentified object moving towards Earth at faster than light speeds. The scientists concluded it was an asteroid the size of Texas. If it hits Earth, the destruction would be catastrophic. Because of its speed, it will impact in less than a day. The Plumbers go straight to work. They send warp-capable battleships to intercept the asteroid and bombard it with continent-destroying weaponry. But the asteroid is extremely durable and incredibly fast. Nothing they throw at it could penetrate, and even if it could, the asteroid outpaces everything. There is nothing they can do, except one final option: Ben. Grandpa Max tries reaching him and tries alerting him to the danger, but Ben is busy giving interviews after saving civilians. When he sees the calls, he assumes it's just another lecture. Then his Omnitrix begins beeping rapidly, and before he understands what's happening, the sky shines brightly like a second sun, and in the blink of an eye, boom, everything is gone. The Omnitrix activates an emergency fail-safe transformation for self-preservation, turning Ben into Diamond Head. It saves him at the last second, but the rest of the world facing the impact is obliterated. The collision causes an extinction event greater than the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. Billions of lives were lost. Ben is shattered. Everyone and everything he knows is gone. His parents, Gwen, Kevin, and most especially Grandpa Max. He becomes engulfed in grief and self-hatred. Survival's guilt consumed him. When he finds the message Grandpa Max sent him, it sends him into a spiral. But his grief has to wait. The asteroid doesn't just bring destruction, it releases man-eating creatures 10 times stronger than an average human, with the bite force hundreds of times greater. These aliens are called Carnimans. The Carnimans begin attacking the remaining life on Earth, and Ben is the only one capable of fighting them. 2 years later, we see a post-apocalyptic Earth. The sky is blood red, most land has become barren deserts, and the Carnimans roam freely. During those 2 years, they hunt human populations of only a few 100,000. Humanity is on the brink of extinction. The world needs a hero, someone to lead them in these dark times. Ben steps up. He knows he's the only one who can stop this. But this isn't a bank robber or a mad scientist. What he's fighting is something far more terrifying. During those 2 years, he hunts Canimads and studies them. He reaches a conclusion. The asteroid is actually a living organism. It acts as a hive mind that controls the Canimads. It's an ancient entity that travels from planet to planet, devouring all life. But that isn't all he learns. The asteroid emits strange signals that interfere with the Omnitrix, causing it to malfunction and become unstable. His aliens begin regressing to primitive forms. Transformations become more physically painful. Sometimes he half transforms, causing unbearable agony. Timeouts become unpredictable. Worst of all, the Omnitrix begins poisoning him. It's killing him slowly, and each transformation accelerates the damage. Ben knows the true enemy is the hive mind organism within the asteroid. It must be destroyed to save humanity. Even as his body deteriorates and transformations become more fair and difficult to control, he vows to become the man Grandpa wanted him to be, a man who understands the responsibility that comes with power, and a man who truly knows what it means to be a hero. That's the overall backstory for my alternate Ben. Now that we've set the groundwork for our Ben in our alternate universe, let's design his alternate aliens. So hey guys, if you've been enjoying the video so far, please hit the like button and hit subscribe. It really helps the channel. I'm a small channel trying to grow, so please help me achieve my dream by supporting me. Thank you. Forearms. So we're starting with Forearms, the tank of the aliens. He represents Ben's fearlessness and confidence. To imagine him in this world as a regressed and fairer alien, I had to think outside the box. Actually, I didn't. I just took the obvious route and referenced Savage Hulk. I mean, can you blame me? A chance to reimagine Forearms as a bigger, stronger variant, I had to use the blueprint. The Hulk has always been one of my favorite characters of all time, and I would not forgive the MCU for what it did to my boy. I already said I cited Hulk as one of my inspirations, but I also use orcs from fantasy stories for inspiration too. The Tetramans, even in modern days, still practice a strength-based society, so I just concluded that the regressed version of that will resemble an orc society. I gave him talks to fit the description. This version of Forearms is a gigantic ticking time bomb who serves as a last resort for Ben. Heat Blast. Now, we go to Heat Blast, Ben's first transformation and a huge fan favorite for the OG playlist. I like him a lot. Heat Blast represents Ben, especially the classic Ben, his hot-headed daredevil attitude. His design is one of my favorites in the show. Now, to reimagine him as a regressed fairer alien, first, I had to find the form for the rocket plates on his body, and for that, I mixed the structure of War Machine armor with a skeleton, giving him a more armored vibe while still carrying a monster-type aura. For his face, I referenced characters like Ghost Rider and Dr. Phosphorus, and for the two holes on his shoulders, I pulled out from classic Ben 10,000, which has the best Heat Blast design for me. This Heat Blast is considerably stronger and has far greater heat output than the Prime version. He can form flame-like tendrils with his fire and melt solids with just a touch. He has enhanced strength and speed, both of which can be amplified by more firepower. He can also fly at will, using thrusters to generate stroke combustion. But like most of Ben's aliens in this universe, he's pure burning rage. His regressed states give him immense power, but trades it for wild and dangerous instincts. No strategy, no restraint, just destruction. This Heat Blast isn't a tool Ben wields, it's a force Ben barely survives. Easily one of my best redesigns. Accelerates. A massive fan favorite. From his design to his unique voice, he just looks freaking cool. That's why everybody hated the industry plant that was Fast Track, who the creators tried replacing him with. Accelerate is a top 5 alien for me because I'm a sucker for characters with super speed. In this universe, I tried to do something different, but it was hard. Trying to one-up one of the most iconic designs in the show is a challenge in itself, and making him stand out from the classic version on top of that made it even harder. Then just in time, I found my answer in another iconic speedster, a short blue hedgehog, Sonic. Specifically one of his most iconic abilities, rolling into a high-speed ball. But wait, one of Ben's aliens can already do that, and if you said Cannonbolt, you are correct. So I decided to merge both their designs into something entirely its own. I shifted his color palette into a dominant blue accent overall and gave him Cannonbolt's accent running down his back to his tail. This version of Accelerate uses his momentum to deliver high damage strikes, with impact approaching what Forearms generates. When he rolls into a ball, he deploys metal spikes that can add serious damage on contact. He's as feared as the rest of the aliens in this universe, and arguably more dangerous because of his speed. Something moving that fast with no restraints is almost impossible to stop. Diamond Head. I think Diamond Head was the hardest to reimagine, since he isn't made from a regular organic material and he isn't made from techno-organic material that can shapeshift into monstrosities. Diamond Head is made of solid crystals, and that made him hard to reimagine, so I went to the absolute default method. Buff it up. I gave him more crystals and mass, making him a hulking diamond man. This version of him has overwhelming strength and speed, and faster crystal generation. He can potentially level a city with his grand crystal spikes he controls from the ground. Diamond Head has always been one of Ben's strongest aliens physically, so he needed a big power boost in this world. Ripjaws. Ripjaws. The alien that has been deemed useless by most of the fandom. My response to that is, send 4 arms to the depth of the sea to save people from a sinking submarine. Ripjaws might not be able to shoot fireballs from his hand, but he has his strengths, and I wanted to use this reimagining to give him the upgrade he deserved. For this regressed version of the alien, I leaned towards the giant unknown creatures of the deep sea. I increased the size and overall ferocity, drawing reference from giant fishmen like King Shark from DC. This version introduces a side of him completely missing from the classic, an underwater hunter that tracks his prey using traces of blood in the water. His main weapons are his large claws and giant fangs. His swim speed is almost as fast as Accelerate on land, and even on land he's no slouch, possessing enhanced strength and agility. My goal with this design was to transform a relegated alien that only worked in water into an actual apex threat, something that makes the sea his domain and everyone else's nightmare. The ocean was always Ripjaw's stage. This version finally owns it, and I'm genuinely satisfied with how it turned out. Stinkfly, another special purpose alien. This guy was only ever used for aerial chases or when the Omnitrix decided to mess with Ben. But as an alien on his own, he was one of my least favorites. He didn't just have that pull that Ripjaws had on me. Now, for this universe, I want to give him the upgrade he never got. On paper, this post-apocalyptic setting actually fits his description very well. Imagine a giant post-apocalyptic bug bearing down on you. That alone is terrifying. For his design, I got rid of his tail and redesigned his eyes from the tube-like structure to the stylized bug eye. I added tubes and canisters to his body to represent the green liquid he emits, but in this universe, the regression has changed that sticky glue into a highly volatile acid that burns on contact, turning what was essentially a nuisance ability into a genuine offensive weapon. I gave him that ability to heighten his threat level significantly. This version is considerably more durable, built with a reinforced exoskeleton and high tensile wings that makes him as relentless in the air as he's dangerous up close. This post-apocalyptic wasteland is his natural habitat, a giant, acidic, near indestructible insect with nowhere to be except in your way. I really like how the design came out. Wild Moth. This character rarely shows up in anybody's top 10, but he's in mine. He was just unique. Having the ability to track with gill-like organs and the inability to speak made him genuinely different from every other alien in the roster. And he had one of the best transformation sequences in the classic series. For this universe, I leaned further into the tracking and hunting side of him, drawing inspiration from Wolverine of the X-Men. I increased his size significantly, giving him real size factor in battles, and enhanced both his attacking and defensive capabilities by giving him the ability to deploy bone spikes, resembling Wolverine's bone claws. His overall physical stats increased tremendously, making him a relentless and devastating force in close quarters combat. What makes this version work is that Wild Moth was always built around instinct. No speech, no strategy, pure sensory-driven hunting. The regression doesn't change who he is so much as it amplifies what he already was. He was always an animal. This version just removes any doubt about it. I really like how this design came out. And if you're enjoying the design so far, please drop a like and hit the subscribe button. Grey Matter. Our favorite Galvan. Grey Matter has always been one of my favorite Ben aliens because of how he was implemented during the episode where Ben was hunted by 6-6 and Crab. Ben used him after trying to use his regular power aliens like Diamond Head, and it worked, which serves as a character development for Ben. Now for this universe where Ben's aliens are regressing, I had to think hard about what I could change in Grey Matter. Since he only has his intelligence going for him, then it clicked. What if I made his intelligence monstrous? Stay with me. This version of Grey Matter is antisocial and unfriendly, with a personality resembling Mayuri Kurosuchi from Bleach. He acts like a mad and out of control scientist. The alien develops a personality separate from Ben, which makes it dangerous. In this design, I kept his stature accurate to the prime version, but changed the Omnitrix placement to his head, identifying his intelligence. For his defection, he seems to have a brain tumor. He is the only alien in the playlist that has the ability to speak. Ghost Freak. I think this alien is the most important one in the classic playlist, since it introduced the concept of transformations having sentience. A concept later explored and expanded upon by both Alien X and Ultimate Aliens in the UAF era. For this universe, I wanted to play with the Zisker concept, even though he's already defeated by this point. Instead of revisiting him directly, I introduced the major personality shift in the transformation itself, similar to Grey Matter, where the transformation is still Ben, but still carries a distinct and dangerous personality imbued between it. For his design, I stayed very close to the original, but implemented the tentacles as a permanent fixture rather than a hidden element. His abilities remain relatively the same, but his regression gave his fear inducement a significant and terrifying upgrade. Operating on the level of Scarecrow's fear toxin from DC, this version can force the enemy to witness eldritch horror so overwhelming they scramble the mind of whoever is experiencing it, including Ben's own. The transformation doesn't just frighten enemies, it fractures the user. Because of that major drawback, Ghost Freak is rarely used in this universe. He is less a weapon and more of a last resort, a transformation even Ben is almost as afraid of as his enemies are. Upgrade. I think for Upgrade, it was a no-brainer for the choice of his design. Upgrade belongs to a species called galvanic mechamorphs. They are techno-organic organisms created by Azimuth. For the defective version that my Ben uses, I only had one choice, to use the already infamous defective mechamorph. Malware. It just makes perfect sense narratively, and as a design choice, the black and red color scheme just fits this version perfectly. This version of Upgrade moves very similar to Carnage in Marvel, a shape-shifting killing machine. Any object it messes with turns into a monstrous, bastardized version of itself. Well, now we are done going through Ben's backstory and I visited all my takes on his classic aliens. Let's finally see him in action. I did a 19-page comics that serves as a showcase for this Ben and his universe. Let's get into it. Alright, so the page opens and we see a view of what Earth looks like. Our beautiful blue pearl has turned into a wasteland. 2 years ago, an asteroid landed and triggered a planet-wide extinction event. As that is happening, we see a massive explosion happen in one of the buildings. The next panel takes us to three boys running from something. As the narrator says, but it wasn't just the impact. That asteroid brought something with it. This shows us what the boys were running from. A monstrous figure that just crashed out from the building. And we're told that these monsters are man-eating monsters. And they are called Carnimans. We see the Carnimans chasing the three boys, apparently to eat them up. As we see the narrator say, they've left us powerless, scared, hiding in the dark like prey. And this whole time, somebody was watching the whole thing going down. The Carnimans get his hands on one of the boys while he pleads for mercy. Simultaneously, the narrator says, only thing standing between humanity and total extinction, while the Carniman has opened his mouth wide open to chop off the head of the boy. Then we go to the next page and get this crazy shot of Ben about to kick the monster. And it's revealed to us that Ben has been the narrator this whole time. And he says, it's me. Ben kicks the head of the monster and we get close-up shots of the boy he just saved and Ben. Yeah, buddy, I'll be keeping the same face if somebody just saved me from a man-eating monster. We get a cool interaction between Ben and the boy. When Ben asks him, you alright? And he says, yeah. Showing off how maybe reserved this universe Ben is. Then the boy points to a direction and says, look out. Of course, a kick wasn't going to stop the Cannonmans and he charges back towards Ben. Ben takes out his batons and poses for action. They charge towards each other and we get this cool shot of Ben weaving through the Candyman, telling us that this Ben has experience fighting these monsters and even has training in martial arts. He uses one of his batons to shock the Candyman, goes around the back and gives it a sounding kick. On the next page, we see Ben taunting the Candyman, telling it, come on you ugly. And I think this is an important detail. He says, good thing this is a lone hunter, I might not need the watch. This tells us that the Ben in this universe only uses the watch as a second option. Then we see the Carnimat charging towards Ben. Then we get this crazy panel where Ben is weaving through the Carnimat, landing different shots. You can see him telling himself to focus, dodge, hit, read its every move, dodge. At this point, the Carnimat has had enough and it kicks Ben, sending him flying across the page. We see the Carnimat walking towards Ben, and you see Ben telling himself that he was careless. He gets up and says, time to finish this. Then we see Ben joining his two battens together. His battens turns into a long rod with a pointy laser blade, and he calls on the Carnimat, come on. The Carnimat charges towards Ben, and we see Ben preparing for attack as he tells himself to time its move, then attack. I want us to stay on this panel for a bit as we see Ben weave through the Carnimat again as Ben is about to land a strike with his laser blade. I really love the attention to detail on this panel as we see Ben's knee braces grinding against the floor, producing sparks. Ben lands a strike on the Carnimat as we see that he has cut through the tough skin of the Carnimat. He looks back and says, gotcha. Remember the guy he saved earlier? Yeah, he's still there. He comes over to Ben, and I really want us to pay attention to the way this Ben speaks, because I find it fascinating that Ben isn't trying to sound cocky or, the way the classic Ben sounds. He comes over to Ben and says, that was amazing. Ben says, was nothing really. Thanks for saving me. Who are you? Ben says, well, and he's interrupted by a roaring sound growing up in the background. Ben turns around and says, you got to be kidding me. It is later revealed that a bunch of more Carnimans have showed up on the scene. And let me tell you, they are angry. The boy from earlier starts panicking, saying, there's more. What are you doing? As we see Ben removing his jacket, being very calm and collected. He tells the boy to stay back as he has finished removing his jacket, while the Carnimat charges towards them. Then we move to the next page, and I must say, this panel is crazy. We see a shot of the Carnimans jumping towards Ben, and he continues to narrate saying, this used to be my best part of the job. Now, I hate it. He doesn't sound excited to use the watch at all, as he goes, going hero. This takes us to Ben's transformation, as we see him transforming in horrifying fashion. His skin is burning and peeling off on the first panel, while he screams, it hurts. Then we see every bit of Ben disintegrating, while we're left with this rocky skeleton figure. My flesh, my bones, he screams, everything. The skeleton figure from before lights up, revealing it was heat blast. And on this next close-up panel, we can see his face distorting a bit from the heat, and he screams burns, while we get a full view on this universe heat blast. Tell me this isn't one of the coolest things you've ever seen. If it is, just hit the subscribe button. You know what I'm saying. Heat blast. We see Heat Blast's hand having the Carnimat on a chokehold. He drags him towards his face, and Ben says, I've used this life form hundreds of times, maybe thousands. As we can see the Carnimat melting before Heat Blast. It used to feel like putting on a suit. At this time, the Carnimat head has already melted off. Why the rest watch from a distance? The Carnimans look up to Heat Blast as it flies towards them. Then we get this splash page with its honestly nuts. We can see that the artist, me, is a big fan of Invincible, and I honestly think this could be a very good cover. Tell me what you think in the comments. But yeah, we see Heat Blast charging towards the Carnimans. Ben continues to tell us about his experience using Heat Blast. As he says, it feels like there is a force, making it more fair. As Ben flies through the Carnimans, ultimately killing it more faster as we see Heat Blast shooting out his flame, and on the next panel we see the effect of his flames as it has burned through the Carnimat. Heat Blast continues burning through the Carnimat as one of them starts running away. I mean, I would too. Then we see one of the coolest sequences in this comic. Heat Blast turns the flames on his shoulder blades into tendrils and catches the Carnimat that was running away, and he whips him and drags him back to him. Look, I knew I drew this comic, but I'm insanely proud how this came out. Heat Blast drags the Carnimat towards him as he places his hand on his head. Because of the heat, his hand is ultimately melting through the Carnimat's head, and Heat Blast starts to rip the Carnimat into two. Then we get this scary panel when Heat Blast ultimately opened the Carnimat into equal halves, Tell me this isn't the most horrifying heat blast you've ever witnessed. And that means he has just finished killing all the Carneymen. In a flash, he turns back and looks at the boy instead of walking towards him. The boy of course gets scared and says, "Huh? Wait, get away from me," as Heat Blast continues marching towards the boy. Get away! He couldn't finish his sentence as he sees Ben transforming back to human form. He doesn't believe what he just saw and he says, "What the?" And we see that Ben's clothes has completely burnt off, letting us know why he removed his jacket in the earlier play. It seems he really loves that jacket. Oh, you're still here. That was amazing. Who are you? As we're exposed to Ben's body, seeing it completely filled with green veins. Wait, what's wrong with your body? Are you sick? As we see a new vein growing on his chest. So closed off and doesn't want to reply him as he tells him, "My jacket." Ben starts walking away while the other guy tells him, "Wait, you can come with me. We're a group of survivors. We have a bunker. Our leader is just like..." Go home. Telling us how this Ben really doesn't like chatting. On the next panel, we're talking to the bunker that the boy was referring to earlier, and we hear him saying, "It was incredible. He turned into a fiery monster and burned through all the man-eaters. He used some kind of watch. It looked alien. I asked him to come to our bunker to meet you." He's then interrupted by somebody he was talking to off panel. "You did good. You can go." Thank you. We get a close-up shot of who he was referring to, as he seems to be the leader the boy was referring to Ben earlier. And he says, "Watch, huh?" Then we get his finishing shot, revealing who the leader was, Kevin 11. And he says, "Tennyson." I really love this design of Kevin, as you can see his throne made up of car parts and junkyard materials. And of course, this panel marks the end of the comic. I think this is the perfect way to end it on a cliffhanger. Who is Kevin in this universe? How did he survive the blasts? And what powers does he have in this continuity? Now, at the time of making this comic, it was just going to be a one-time thing. But now, seeing the way it came out, if you want this to be a continuous series, please show us the support and tell us in the comments. The reception this video gets is going to let me know if I should invest time in creating more of this comic. So guys, we have come to the end of the video. If you enjoyed what you watched, please hit the like and subscribe button and let us know what you would like to see next.